Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Medical Coding by Jen podcast, your trusted source for simplifying medical coding concepts and helping you ace your certification exams. I'm your host, Jen. Today, we're diving into a crucial guideline that often trips up many coders, coding for conditions described as both acute and chronic. But before we jump in, if you're finding value in this podcast, please like, share, and subscribe. Don't forget to join our membership for exclusive content and visit medicalcodingbyjen.com for more resources. Also, feel free to comment on any topics you'd like me to cover in future episodes. So, I often hear questions like,
Jen, how do I properly code a condition that's documented as both acute and chronic? I'm particularly confused about how to find and sequence the codes correctly in the ICD-10-CM manual.
That's an excellent question. Let's unpack this guideline to make it more understandable. According to the ICD-10-CM official guidelines for coding and reporting, if the same condition is described as both acute, subacute, and chronic, and separate subentries exist in the alphabetic index at the same indentation level, code both and sequence the acute-subacute code first. Let's break this down and see how it applies, especially when looking up codes in your ICD-10-CM manual.
That sounds a bit technical. Can you simplify it and maybe provide an example?
Absolutely. Let's start by understanding some key terms. Acute, a condition with a rapid onset and a short duration. Subacute, a condition that is between acute and chronic, not as severe as acute, but not as prolonged as chronic. Chronic, a condition that persists over a long period. When a patient has both an acute and a chronic form of the same condition, and the ICD-10-CM alphabetic index lists separate subentries for each at the same indentation level, you should code both conditions. Sequence the acute or subacute code first. Now let's use thyroiditis as our example.
Great! How do I go about coding acute and chronic thyroiditis?
Let's walk through the steps together, and I'll also point out some helpful features in the ICD-10-CM manual that make this process easier. Step 1. Start in the alphabetic index. Open your ICD-10-CM manual to the alphabetic index. Look up the main term thyroiditis. Step 2. Understand the indentations and color coding. Under thyroiditis, you'll notice subterms indented under the main term. The ICD-10-CM manual uses color-coded vertical lines to indicate different levels of indentation. Second indentations are often marked with a yellow vertical line. Fourth indentations may have another yellow line or a different color, depending on your manual. This color coding helps you quickly identify the hierarchy of terms. Note, this color-coded indentation system is explained on the first page of the alphabetic index under the header. It's a helpful tool to navigate through the entries efficiently.
I see the color-coded lines. They really make the indentations stand out.
Exactly. Now, let's continue. Step 3. Locate the acute and chronic subterms. Under thyroiditis, find the subterms acute and chronic. You'll notice that both acute and chronic are at the same indentation level indicated by the color-coded vertical lines. Step 4. Identify the codes. Acute thyroiditis is assigned the code E06.0. Chronic thyroiditis has different types, but if unspecified, it might be this code E06.5, thyroiditis chronic unspecified. Please verify these codes in your current ICD-10-CM manual, as codes can change. Step 5. Sequence the codes correctly. First, assign E06.0 for acute thyroiditis. Second, assign E06.5 for chronic thyroiditis. The acute code comes first because the guideline states to sequence the acute subacute code before the chronic code when coding both.
That's starting to make sense. But what if the chronic thyroiditis is specified, like Hashimoto's thyroiditis?
Great point. If the type of chronic thyroiditis is specified, such as Hashimoto's thyroiditis, you would find thyroiditis in the alphabetic index. Under thyroiditis, look for Hashimoto's or autoimmune. Assign the specific code E06.3 for autoimmune thyroiditis Hashimoto's. In this case, you would still code both the acute and chronic conditions if both are documented and codable, sequencing the acute code first.
How do I ensure I'm following the guideline correctly during the exam?
Here are some tips. Move the guideline to the codes it affects while you are practicing exam questions. Rewriting the guidelines near the codes in the tabular part of the book so you do not have to go to the guidelines directly during the exam is helpful. Highlight areas like the yellow vertical lines help you quickly identify subterms at the same level. Check the first page of the index. Highlight the header explaining the indentation and color coding system, which can be a helpful refresher during the exam. When you are cross-referencing the tabular list, be sure to rewrite the guideline near the codes referenced there too. Repeating this task with each guideline question will reinforce learning.
This is really helpful. I feel more confident about handling these scenarios now.
I'm glad to hear that. Understanding how to navigate the alphabetic index using the indentation levels and color coding can save you a lot of time and ensure accuracy.
Do you have any final tips?
Yes. Practice is key. Work through multiple examples of conditions that can be both acute and chronic. Also, consider rewriting and highlighting key guidelines for quick reference near the codes they affect. And remember, if you need more personalized help or additional resources, be sure to visit medicalcodingbyjen.com. I offer memberships with exclusive content, practice questions, individual tutoring or booking an advice session, free practice area with resources, and more to support your journey. That brings us to the end of today's episode on coding acute and chronic conditions using thyroiditis as our example. I hope this discussion clarified the guideline and gave you practical steps to apply it effectively. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, share, and subscribe. Join our membership for more in-depth content and let me know in the comments what other topics you'd like me to cover. Thank you for tuning in, and remember, I'm here to help you every step of the way toward becoming a certified medical coder.
Until next time, happy coding!